All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here with KenshinTrek. That's going to be doing Super Castlevania 4 any percent, and we've got D&D Nat 21 here to do the commentary. And so, take it away, D&D.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here. KenshinTrek is a fantastic runner of Super Castlevania 4. I hope everybody is excited to see a great run of any percent. This is a game that requires a large amount of concentration, so you're going to be hearing my voice and my voice only. We're going to be speaking to KenshinTrek after the run. This is going to be a very, very high-risk, very dangerous run. So I hope you're all ready for some good whipping action from Simon Belmont, and I'm going to go ahead and start the countdown to get us started right here. Game starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go ahead and wish him good luck. Good luck, Kenshin. And we are going to go ahead and be off.
Thank you very much.
So, Super Castlevania 4, released in 1991. On October 31st in Japan, and then ported over into poured over to the United States in December of the same year, is a 2D action platformer that is a lot of fun. We're going to be seeing a couple of interesting tech here. First and foremost, stage 1 is the stables. You'll notice that he is going to be jumping out of a lot of these clunk frames that I'm gonna explain later on, as well as whipping through these enemies. The goal of Super Castlevania 4 is to collect your cross, get the triple multiplier, and then try to keep it for the rest of the game. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Except that everything here is trying its absolute best to kill you. Now, the game designers knew exactly what they were doing. They're going to be putting these enemies in very inconvenient locations to try to knock us into the pit, and, well, make us lose the cross, because if we die, not only do we lose time, we start at the beginning of the level, but we're going to be going through, trying to build up that cross multiplier. So death is never a good thing. There are no death dwarfs in this game. First, got the whip upgrade. The way that we get the multiplier upgrade is that we're going to try to hit 10 things in a row with the crosses while we have 8 or more hearts. You're going to see the Roman numerals drop, and we're going to do that again to try to get up to the triple cross. Now, the boss at the end of this stage is Rodane, the undead knight, who will try his best on the back of his undead horse to stop Simon as he power walks his way through the game. One thing to note, our health, that's boost fuel. The power walk that Simon does is efficient, but we want to be able to go faster. And every single time that we boost off an enemy, we are going ever so slightly faster. So the higher that we can boost off an enemy, the better. Each boost is about 0.25 of a second. Now, Kenshin's PB is a 3349. A 3349 that was acquired 2 days ago, so Kenshin is currently hot off the press with a PB. I would like to also point out that he just bopped me on the leaderboards as well, so Kenshin is currently a solid competitor when it comes to the leaderboards. If there's anybody that you can count for on a consistent run, it's absolutely Kenshin. Just a quick step on down these stairs. These stairs, we're going to talk a little bit about these guys later on, but for anyone who's played this game before, you'll notice the stairs can also be an enemy in and of itself. A couple of perfectly timed crosses, using the rebounds off of the edge of the screen in order to stack them. And just like that, a Simon completed Triforce. Very nice level 1. The reason why the cross does so much damage as we step into level 2, the swamp. The reason why, good purple hand there. Those purple hands will try to grab you for 16 movement inputs, so you gotta try to spam your way out. The way that the crosses do damage is that the game registers damage by determining what is in contact with the enemy every other frame as a collision frame, and so every second frame it'll make sure, like, check, is it a whip, is it a cross? Is it 3 crosses? Now this is why we try to keep the multiplier, because if we have 3 crosses on a boss, chances are it'll do 3 pips of damage. You get the combos one after another. That is why crosses do indeed kill bosses. Now in the swamp, do you think that it's the undead creatures, the skeletons, the zombies, any hordes of enemies summoned by Dracula himself in order to be able to stop Simon? That is the major problem? No, it's the animals. The bats, the birds, the toads, they are problematic, which is why we're going to be throwing some perfectly timed crosses to make sure that those birds, whose pattern, as soon as they step off of their arc, it's an RNG arc. we can't predict them, we can't manipulate them, at least to not to human capacity. So we have to try to remove them as soon as possible, as soon as they get off of their perch, and try our best to make sure that we don't miss. If they do miss, they will chase Simon for the entirety of the stage, and it can cause some major problems, because we have this entire route measured out for our health management. Health management is going to be taking a major part in this game through planning and trying to be as consistent as possible through routing each stage. One thing you'll also note is that all of these candles are mapped. They are not RNG, there is no random aspect or random table. Oh, there's Medusa, the boss of the stage, in the middle of the stage. Blink and you miss her. That was an audio cue, which checked for, to make sure that we can throw those crosses properly. Any later, we end up missing and she dies too slow and she ends up giving you a nice little kiss. Any earlier and same thing can happen, and we want to keep our health. We're on the river here. The river's going to go ahead and switch paces, so we're going to try our best to jump when the river changes direction. Fun little physics factor. Getting some boosts off of the dragon statue. Well done. And now these imps can actually have two different spawn patterns. Let's see if he gets the good pattern here, and he does. Nicely done. Moving into stage 3, the caves. Now, the caves are what we consider a gate. Stage 3 gate is a very real thing. These mudmen here, when they are full size, do 4 pips of damage. Now, Simon has 16 health, which means that if you are taking 3 pips of damage, which is the normal standard damage rate for enemies in this game, which means you can take 5 boosts. But if you take 4 damage pips, Simon dies. So it's better to take 3 damage pips or 2 damage pips, even better, because we can then use more boost fuel. But these mudmen, first off, their patterns are RNG of 1 of 4 patterns, and when they are fully grown, do 4 points of damage. We want to try to keep as much health as possible, because we are going to be skipping a good portion of the stage that is coming up, the waterfall. Kenshin has had some fantastic mudmen and made his way through with only taking 1 hit. This means that he can indeed make his way through the waterfall stage here, using all of the boosts available to him. Now, there's one little thing about Castlevania physics. Simon has a jump arc. Jumps up, jumps down. Very straightforward. Most games have them. But what do you think happens when we attack a ring, perhaps, from the top? Well, you see, we switch to pendulum physics, and something like that happens, known as the ring glitch, where there is no longer a gravity aspect, but instead, the game goes on momentum-based. And since we are hitting the ring directly from the top with Simon's whip, there is no actual momentum, and we can extend downwards, or at least upwards from the ring glitch, and skip a good portion of the level. We will see this later on in the game as well. It allows us to skip a good portion of platforming within Stage 3. It's very tight to pull off the second one, but not the first one. Nice eyeball boost. Good health management. Whoa! That was scary. Okay. The fishman on this stage can be a little trolly, unfortunately. That was a bad spawn for the merman, as we like to call him, but very well handled by Kenshin. By retracting the whip, he was able to adjust himself and not touch the fishman. That pattern is there to end him. Well handled. Nice ring glitch. And we're making our way up to the Orphic Vipers. Now the Orphic Vipers, twin-headed vipers that will spawn from the side. One thing about this game, there is a sprite limit, a frame limit as well, and in order to prevent the game from crashing, it will slow down the game and cause excessive amounts of lag. Lag reduction is very much key. Oh, wow, that was a very smooth kill. Very well done, Kenshin. the longer we have those Vipers on screen, the worse it becomes. So we try to time our crosses perfectly using a visual cue from the water rising to throw those crosses, overlap them, get that overlap damage, and remove them as fast as possible. That was extremely well done. We are now moving our way over to the tower. Now, there are two bosses on this stage. One, Coexel, a parasitic creature that lives inside of a skull. That's right, for those who thought it was the skull that was the boss. No, there is a creature inside of that. It's his tongue. And the other boss is a large stone golem going by the name of Coronaut. Which, there is a naming convention for both of these bosses. Remember how I said that Coexel was the tongue? Well, his name backwards is Licks You Up. And Coronaut, the stone golem, well, he's just a ton of rock. They're names that are switched around completely backwards, and it's quite clear that the developers here had a sense of humor. Same thing with a boss later on stage 6. Some properly timed crosses, some great whips, and we avoid the falling beams from the ceiling. Now, one great aspect of Super Castlevania 4 is that it uses Mode 7 consistently. Here we are approaching a room known infamously for the Medusa heads that knock you into the pit. As a casual player, you were probably wondering, do I throw crosses? Do I whip? Do I throw the axe? Do I jump around and try to avoid them? Well, we speedrunners have a fantastic strategy. It's called staying still and ducking. Because if we do nothing at all, the Medusa heads do nothing to us. You see, they are set up on a sine wave pattern, which is based on Simon's head height. And if we are crouching, it just so happens that if we do nothing, they'll just sine wave underneath us and over us. It does absolutely nothing to Simon whatsoever. So staying still and crouching is the easiest way to handle that room. A little bit more Mode 7 of the rotation of this back room allows us to get ourselves lined up with the needles, just scraping our little toesies over the needle. And by the way, Simon's toes are the strongest things in this game. You'll see him grab ledges, but if he just so happens to prick a needle just once, well, that's GG for him. Common nickname is Thymon Legmont for all of the jumping and stairs that he takes. Now this room, it could get a little... Whoa, that was as close as a skeleton. Nicely done, though, Kenshin, getting the invincibility potion and the health here. This room, the Tunnel of Love. Lag. We are going to do our best to avoid killing any enemies whatsoever, because everything is a sprite, including the rocks that crumble, the skeletons when they die. So, by not killing them, or at least killing the ones that we only absolutely have to, we are going to do our best to reduce lag. Just keep in mind, the crosses are a sprite as well. Simon's whip is a couple of sprites. So if we whip, or when we don't need to, if we kill an enemy when we don't need to, the game can slow down. We might be able to use this to our advantage later on. Here on the rotating platforms, we are slowly making our way to Coronaut. We do our best to wait for these platforms to move, because as some people probably thought, oh man, we have to ride all the way around to get to the top of this level. No, it's a rotating room. It just recycles the level, and we can actually just walk horizontally right across if we wait for the right platforms. Watch out for those needles. Deal with a little bit of stairs yet again. And make our way up into Coronaut. Now, there are multiple setups for Coronaut, which involve properly, either from one side to the left or the right, throwing crosses, but he can get a little out of hand, because whether or not he starts off by jumping, or by throwing a rock, or by simply walking forward, will determine whether or not... Oh, so close on that early orb! Will determine what his behavior and patterns are. So you can have a bad RNG Coronaut fight based on the way he behaves, and you need to react accordingly. Those platforms on the side, depending on when you kill him, will have a specific height based on his death animation, and you can get that orb early, but I feel like Kenshin was robbed on that. That's the game's fault. Bad game. We are now moving into stage 5, the staircase. This is the small little moment of breathing, except that there's a lot of RNG. The enemies in here, Fleamen and Harpies, I'm sure if you played the Castlevania series before, you are familiar with these annoying jumping little creatures. Their spawn points are within specific sectors of the level, but whether or not they spawn is entirely RNG, and also their height is RNG. So you can get no harpies, you can get a boatload of harpies, and they can be at any given height. So we do our best to throw crosses to make sure that we cover a good portion of the screen, the most that we can, and we take them out if they do appear on screen. They have a nasty habit of appearing right when you're jumping for a platform, and when you really do not want them to be there. Couple of whips here, going over the top route, taking a boost, jumping and taking one extra boost right there, nicely done, leaving ourselves with 2 health as we ascend the staircase to where Castlevania 1 began. That's right, this is a retelling game. For those of you who have played Castlevania 1, you're going to recognize this next stage and the stages thereon after, but here is where the game cranks up the difficulty. So far so good on the stages, on the run. And welcome to the dining hall, the castle entrance. Stage 6, the enemies have more health. It may not be so apparent with the bats, but certain things that normally took 3 whips now take 4. Things that used to take 1 whip now take 2. There is a big difference when it comes to difficulty as well, to where things have been laid out. Now, within this dance hall, the boss here is a pair of dancing undead ghouls. Paula Abgul and Fred is Scare, as they are aptly named in the American manual. Fun, once again, the designers had fantastic naming conventions. And Kenshin is now approaching so lovingly called in our community, the anxiety swings. These swings are Mode 7 platforms that can be done in 3 ways: 3 cycle, 2 cycle, 1 cycle. One is faster than the rest, but is far riskier. 2 cycle requires an audio cue. There is another way to do so, which doesn't require an audio cue, but a visual cue. And 1 cycle, which is extremely tight platforming and audio cue involved for most of the patterns. It is a little terrifying to pull off, but each cycle saves you about 4.5 seconds, so it's definitely worth it when you're going for top-end strats. Here we're dealing with the dancing ladies, who... Oh, ectoplasm got a little bit out of hand there. As I'd mentioned previously, the game checks for collision every other frame, so there are some times where you can kind of get frame ruled out of collision, and that's not a good thing. You're going to end up basically missing a cross. And each of these crosses share a hitbox. So let's say your first cross hits a candle and your other 2 crosses are overlapping an enemy. Well, that collision is registered. The previous frame is not counted. The frame after that is not counted. So you have 3 frames of useless weaponry, which can come back to bite you. We always do our best as speedrunners to avoid overlapping candles and enemies, as we call that candle clipping. Kenshin smoothly moving his way through the level and making his way over to the skeleton heckway. We have another name for it, but I'm not sure we can say it here. The hallway of skeletons takes some crosses timed well, because the candles are at a height to cause candle clipping, and they block the skeletons, or as we lovingly call them, Richards, as there is another nickname for Richards that, once again, we do not want to use, that will cause us to have to stop, stand, and whip. And whipping takes 1/4 second for a full animation. We don't want to be doing that. If we can jump whip, that's always more efficient. If we can throw across and jump out of the animation, that's always more efficient. Here, Kenshin is going to use the health that he has acquired. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, whoa. We're all good. As long as the ghouls decide not to... I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. Okay, we're good. Well done, Kenshin. And here we are, the dancers. 1, 2, and 3. Whip, 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 and bye-bye, dancers. Let's get some hype and chat for this run. This is a great run moving into stage 7, the library. Headed by Knight Grakul. There is indeed a tech that is in this level. Perhaps we'll see it. It's a little bit risky, the book jump. It is a tight window where it requires Simon to be on the last few pixels of the book that moves around and allows us to skip a cycle and basically jump to a platform. But the window for this is extremely small. If I'm not mistaken, it's about a 4-frame window, which sounds like it's a lot. It's 4 frames, right? Well, remember, we're running at 60 frames per second here. So that is 1/15 of a second, if I'm doing my math properly here. That is not a very generous window when it comes to the human reflexes. We have a visual cue for it, and we got a high axe, so no boost there. But these books can be rather treacherous when you're doing your best to go for a PV pace. The red skeletons, by the way, do 4 pips of damage, and remember what I had mentioned before about the red skeletons? Ooh, yes! Nicely done, Kenshin, on that book jump. 4 pips of damage is very, very bad, and you were able to remove the skeletons out of the way and clear the path for that book jump. The red dog, anything that's red in this game does extra damage. I don't know why. Red things go faster, they do more damage. Seems to be a trend. But now we are making our way through this hallway of bats, which, because the enemies are so tightly close together, we have an issue with the frame clipping yet again, but removing them with properly spaced out crosses, taking out the red dog. And see this enemy, by the way? This beautiful red centipede that has a very unique sound and a really cool animation, and we are never going to see him again. We will never encounter this creature. We completely ignore him, and it's just, honestly, it's a shame because it's a really cool creature. This hallway up ahead requires some axe boosting, depending on if it's a high or a low, in order to make sure that we get to... Yep. Excellent recovery from Kenshin. That could have been a very hairy situation, but he was able to handle it by pausing the bath with a limp whip and ducking underneath it, creating a unique hole. Well done. That is stage 7. Now we have a moment. Take a deep breath. Welcome to stage 8. Oh, sorry, did I say stage 8? I meant stage 8. The dungeon. Stage 8 is a treacherous level. The enemies are our friends, because everything else in the level is trying to kill us. Spikes, spikes, and more spikes. Now, one thing that you might notice is that, wait a second, why do I remember that pool underneath on the ground being red of blood, and right now it's green acid? That's because when the Japanese version was ported over, there was some censorship that was involved over into the American version. A couple of things that were crossed out were, pardon the pun, but the crosses on top of the gravestones at the intro stage, they kept the boomerang, or the cross that we use, we call it the boomerang in the American version. They got rid of the blood on the spikes. They turned it into acid and the blood on the floor. And they got rid of, well, they covered up some of the statues in the background of Stage 6. They were a little too exposed for the American audience. But you'll notice here that there's needles everywhere. And, well, needles, they kill you. The enemies here are going to provide us with invincibility frames, which is extremely important, that we're going to use to avoid any type of spikes if we can, jump across this acid, which will try to sink us into the ground, but only do 2 pips of damage. We can use those iframes if we need to, but you're going to see that be very apparent in the next scene. Now, if anyone's played Castlevania, you'll know in the dungeon, it's Frankie, baby. That's right, Frankenstein is the boss. Ooh, good stairs break, using the iframes to go underneath the spikes. There's a good example. Here's another set. But Frankie is indeed the boss. There's no Fleeman with him like in Castlevania, but this time around, he's got potions and potions to spare, my friend. He is going to be throwing them, and we're going to be throwing crosses and whipping at the same time. Now, I'm curious about something. This is indeed a marathon setting. Okay. That bridge that is currently in front of Kenshin is completely RNG. Whether or not the pattern is there to help you you cannot predict it. We call that bridge Vegas, and there's a way to break the stairs beforehand, use the boost, and try to get a quick jump on Vegas to be certain that we'll try our best to survive it. But sometimes the game just pulls the rug out from underneath you, and you lose, and the house wins. So Smart move not gambling on Vegas, because the second rotation is usually the safest. You can read the pattern. Well done. Overlapping those crosses, whipping Frankie because his hitbox is bigger than his actual contact box, and tearing him apart. Stage 9, the treasury. It's gold and it's shiny. But don't let that lure you into a false sense of security. No, this stage is filled with lag, golden skeletons, and a Zaph bat. One little warning, if you haven't already noticed, there's a little bit of flashing in this game, but on this stage, it's pretty heavy. So, photosensitivity warning, especially for Zapbat. If you have photosensitivity in any way, shape, or form, please take care for this bat. Every hit is going to flash, and when he gets defeated, it flashes violently. So, just a quick little heads up on that. This stage is beautiful, but it is deadly. The platforms dissolve, more sprites, more lag. The riches are placed in locations that want to knock you back into the pit. Same thing with the bats, and there's no turning back once you've landed on these platforms. Now, if you do a same frame jump where you land and press the button within the same frame, you can actually avoid dissolving these platforms and reduce the lag. But if you press one frame earlier, your jump will get eaten. Simon will stand there looking like a fool as he falls into the pit. Nicely done on that swing, avoiding the fireball, swinging his way on through. Dragon Head, we don't need to know about him. Walk right on through, and here we enter the Scrooge McDuck pit, which is, if this makes any sense to anybody, you can sink into this pit. Coins are solid. I've always wondered about that, about DuckTales. These spikes are also fatal. We're going to use a stone to boost us on forward. Enter the vertical ascent room. There's a hidden room, by the way, for those who may not know. The top shelf there, where the coffin was, if you get sucked into the geyser, there's actually a hidden room in case you lose your cross or any other weapon that you may choose to use for either your casual run or professional run. But if you're racing, it's a great little location to pick up your combo yet again and try your best to get back on pace. Using the whip to pause enemies is always a good strategy. Now, I mentioned previously, stairs are our enemy. This is very true. There is a thing called Stairs Boss. I'm going to describe it at the very beginning of the next stage because Kenshin is about to enter Zapbat, and he has to count to 22 hits before Zapbat breaks. Good break, a little high, but with some well-timed crosses and some great whipping, Zapbat is indeed down. Now, Zap, we want to break as low as possible. If he breaks too high, the momentum of the bats carries through. When it splits into 3, it gets chaotic. Zapbat is one of those checks in the game that you have to get under control, otherwise you can lose a lot of time. But Kenshin was able to wrangle that bat, even the separation. Let's grab those stairs and make our way over to Stage A. And you know what Stage A is? Would it be a Castlevania game without a clock tower? No, not at all. Now, Stairs Boss, very quickly, because I want to listen to this music as well, because it is a jam. One fact about this game, by the way, the OST is superb, and for those who don't know, this is Bloody Tears. Stairs Boss is when you actually can fall through a dead pixel on the center of the stairs. Imagine a Cartesian plane, and the stairs passing through them. Well, there's a 0-0 that exists. And if Simon registers 0-0 on the angle of incidence, well, there is no stairs to grab. Despawning the teeth to reduce lag. What a pro move. Well done. Sprite overload. I'm going to stop talking for a second because let's just enjoy Bloody Tears, alright guys? Get your cat jams out. Kenshin making short work of the quick ascent. Now, I'm pretty sure a bunch of people have tried time and time again to take a casual way, got knocked down off those rings, but we're using iframes, we are using specific timings and spawn rates in order to be able to make sure that we get through these rings as fast as possible. By grabbing onto those rings as high as possible or at certain positions, we spawn the enemy, we make sure that their patterns are in specific locations, and this allows us to avoid their fireballs or any axes that they would like to throw at us. Now, Mummy Be Kind. Not the worst spawn. Now, Mummy can have 4 locations: bottom left, top right, middle right. There's also 2 attacks that the Mummy can do. These bandages as well as fireballs. Now, that leaves for a total of 8 possible outcomes. Our best option is the far left or the far right. It seems that Mummy this time around was not too kind, but that's okay. Kenshin's going to be able to defeat the boss with some well-timed crosses. But we want bottom left or top right. Bottom left requires 21 crosses, and right requires 16 plus whips. You can defeat Mummy within 1 cycle, but if there's ever a middle spawn, it usually ends up falling back to 2 cycles, and that can cost you anywhere between 8 to 10 seconds, depending on the location and the attack of choice. Now we're on stage B. Now remember how it said that there's a 0-0 pixel where, you can kind of fall through the stairs? Well, this is an entire level of stairs, and this is something that can happen throughout the entirety of the level. So we are going to do our best to jump at a specific time, at specific places, to make sure that that doesn't happen, to at least reduce the chances of that happening. But of course we want to go as fast as possible. This is a speedrun after all. Stage B requires a lot of precision, a lot of backwhips as well, because we're going to be removing these bats that spawn from the bridge. What type of construction material has bats in it? Nonetheless, I'm not a contractor. Moving forward to Stairs Boss. These stairs, well, they only go one direction, and that's up. No going back. If you fall, there is a razor blade, which is gonna chase you and kill you, and there is no way of... Ooh, okay, that was the big stairs. That one right there is the worst stairs boss that could happen, so thankfully, Kenshin was able to jump at a right location and not get that 0 pixel. That spot, yeah, that blade at the bottom, it's gonna kill you. There's no going back. If you miss the stairs and they just dissolve away, you are either just gonna stand there or you have to jump off the ledge and try again. And it's very unforgiving. Here are some platforms that are manipulatable based on the pattern that you get, but you want to try to ride them up as fast as possible and avoiding the needles on the ceiling. Very close. And we're gonna be making our way to the room of close associates. Now, I'm sure people have played a few Nintendo games here. I mean, that's what we're here for. Would it be a final level if there wasn't a boss rush? That's right, 3 bosses, and then the big bad evil guy, Dracula himself. The first of bosses is Slagra, that Kenshin so affectionately calls the Destroyer of Dreams. Slagra here has 2 phases, and has iframes just like Simon does. So we have to try our best to overlap all 3 crosses, create a triangle of sorts, to make sure that we get as many crosses on top of Slagra as possible, so that they all register damage. First phase was very good. There is a 1 in 15 chance that he will do a dash in his first phase. And in the second phase, he can be highly aggressive and do many dashes like that, but he was kind of semi-tame actually. That was a pretty forgiving Slagra. He had 2 phases where he didn't dash, so we'll say thank you, Slagra, have yourself a great day. Second boss, we're gonna get some ammo, get some health, and move on to Gaibon, the Flying Gargoyle. Gaibon has 2 phases, 1 blue, 1 red. One where he flies around and drops stalactites from the ceiling, and the other one where he shoots fireballs from his mouth. But we don't really care. We throw crosses and we let Gaibons be bygones. As the body dissolves, we are moving on to the 3rd council member in the room of close associates. Get a little bit of ammo, and who haven't we seen yet from the Castlevania series? He's a big baddie. It's Death, the Grim Reaper himself. We're gonna jump and try to throw some crosses so that we take out the size that he throws as fast as possible. Overlap a couple of crosses as he goes over to the right side of the room, and kill him before he even touches the ground. Well done, Kenshin. The torches light up. We approach the staircase. We've worked so hard. Kenshin's making some pretty good time, I must say. Let's load up some ammo, and let's take out Drac. Now, Dracula has 3 phases. There's a couple of details about these phases. First one, purple fireballs. They split when we try to jump over them. Sound familiar? Yep, that's CV1 again. Second phase, there's fire elementals that he's going to summon. We're going to do our best to try to destroy them. And third phase, he loses his head and well, not literally, but starts to shoot lightning from the ceiling. But the only part that we can hit with Drac is his head. So we're going to throw some crosses and try our best to whip and overlap to make sure that we do more of that collision damage. There is indeed an in-between phase where if you actually if you have Dracula take a couple of hits extra, he will shoot out a purple orb. Ah, there it is. How convenient that I'm talking about it. And it drops meat. How nice of him to feed up Simon. But you can easily accidentally overlap those phases and skip it all together and just take a bunch of damage by accident. And you don't want to do that. Cool trick for this, by the way, is that if you pause when the lightning is on the ceiling, you can actually read where it's coming from. And that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we're going to have time in about 10 seconds when the final orb has been grabbed. So, that's Super Castlevania 4 done expertly in a 34 time. I must say, very, very well done. Orb grab is going to be in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 time. Well done, KenshinTrek. Congratulations. Let's get those GGs. Absolutely amazing run. Want to say something? A lot of the Super Castlevania 4 and Castlevania community is here right now hyping up Kenshin. This is a very fun game. Yes, Kenshin, well done.
Oh, hello, D&D Nat and everybody watching. Thank you so much. This was a really nice game. I did not make any major mistakes. It was deathless. I am really satisfied with this time. This was a really solid game. I am really happy for that.
Yeah, you ended up, let me see here, let me just do some quick math. 23 seconds above your PB. That's an incredible run to pull off on marathon pace. Very, very well done. Normally there's a little bit more pressure, but it seemed to not phase you at all. You did everything exactly as you would in a race on Sundays. This was just an incredible show of what this game is. Very well done. I want to just give a quick shout out before I hand this back off to the hosts and we move on to the next game. Massive shout out to the community. It is a great community. We are always racing every Sunday. We are doing our best to help one another out all the time. Whenever a new strat comes out, we're always working together to try to build this up. Extremely welcoming. If you're a beginner, we will help you learn the beginner strats. We will help you learn the medium strats. And we're always there in each other's chats, supporting even when it comes to grinding out the top end of the leaderboard. We have a website that is maintained by our community, Castlevania Speedruns. If you ever want to take a look at that site, it has tons of information on the speedrun at any level, including the world record holder. The world record, by the way, currently is at 31:18, but there is still indeed room to be made and strats that are still being implemented. So if you're interested in a Castlevania game, you like Super Nintendo, and you enjoyed what you saw here, please feel free to come on by, stop by, say hi to Kenshin, say hi to myself, anybody else that is running the game at the time. It's a great category, a lot of fun, and it's us versus the game. So I want to give a big thank you to Strizer and the Game Over Cancer crew for having Kenshin and myself here, being able to entertain you guys and to raise money for a fantastic cause. And let's go ahead and use up all of those continues that Cancer has and give it that good old game over.
Heck yes. D&D Nat, thank you very much for this amazing commentary. Kenshin for the wonderful run. Can't thank everybody enough for all the participation here. But we're not quite done yet. We have one final run for the first day of GOC. We've got Taleo. Taleo won with Dragon View. So stand by.